France is the victim of another Islamic terrorist attack, that's 2 in 1 month, Purdue pleads guilty to criminal charges, and Twitter is getting exposed more and more each day. Let's get into it. Earlier this month, Samuel Paty, a French teacher, showed his students cartoons of Mohammed, the cartoons drawn by Charlie Hebdo, the French newspaper that was the victim of a terror attack in 2015, where 12 employees were killed by Islamic extremists for drawing Mohammed. So Samuel Paty showed his students the cartoons. For that, he was beheaded on the street by Islamic extremists. Yesterday, an Islamic extremist ran into a church in Nice, that's a city in France, stabbed 2 people to death, and beheaded the groundskeeper. That's 4 dead and 2 beheadings in less than a month by Islamic extremists in France. Look, France is soft. They're like the Pillsbury Doughboy of powerful nations. They're trading off their military success up until World War I. I mean, come on, since then they've been nothing. Let's be real, the French are soft, but the response to the recent attacks has been good. President Macron not only acknowledged that the problem is indeed Islamic extremism and called them terrorists, but he also doubled the amount of military in the streets to protect everybody, including the schools, synagogues, and churches.
Notre pays a été frappé par une attaque terroriste islamiste. Une fois encore ce matin, ce sont 3 de nos compatriotes qui sont tombés à Nice, en cette basilique Notre-Dame de Nice. Attaqué. Une fois encore. C'est pour les valeurs qui sont les nôtres, pour notre goût de la liberté, pour cette possibilité sur notre sol de croire librement et de ne céder à aucun esprit de terreur. Et je le dis avec beaucoup de clarté une fois encore aujourd'hui, nous n'y céderons rien.
I also thought it was a very good idea by President Macron to have the police stand guard while the drawings of Charlie Hebdo of Mohammed were being displayed in a large building. It's a ballsy move. Surprised. Way to go, France. If that happened here and Trump acted like Macron, the radical left would call him a racist, first of all, and they would call him authoritarian for using the military. Also, I'd like to point out that that's the second beheading in France in a month. As a response to the first beheading, 2 innocent Muslim women were stabbed. Now we had 2 more people stabbed to death and another beheaded. All of this chaos, all of this violence and death and murder done with a knife, not guns. It's crazy people that are the problem, not the tools which they use to administer the harm. Now, before we get to Twitter, why don't we talk about another very righteous company? Let's talk about Purdue Pharmaceuticals. Purdue is finally taking responsibility for its role in the opioid epidemic. It pled guilty to 3 criminal charges, including intent to defraud the United States government and anti-kickback laws. They were fined $8 billion. Nice, right? That money's going to be able to help a lot of people when used by the government correctly. Except, then you realize that Purdue is in bankruptcy court and the government probably won't see any more than $500 million. Not so nice. But at least the Sackler family or the executives are going to jail, right? They pled guilty to 3 criminal charges, right? Huh? What's that? Oh, nobody's going to jail? Oh, okay, cool, nice. What this shows us, ladies and gentlemen of the court, is this. All the issues that we're talking about that we have in this country, it's not really a racial issue. It's not a racial divide. This is a class issue, a class divide. It's very clear that the super wealthy are adhering by a different set of rules. And that's Purdue. Why don't we move on to Twitter? As you may know from watching my videos or other alternative media, when the New York Post broke the Hunter Biden story, Twitter locked and suspended their account. If a person tried sharing the link to the story, they would be suspended. When Kylie McEnany, the White House press secretary, tried sharing the story, her account was locked. She had no access. She could not speak to the American people. This controversy led the Senate to subpoena the CEO of Twitter, Mr. Jack. They also subpoenaed the CEO of Google and the CEO of Facebook. Senator Cruz grilled Jack when it came to censorship, and even though he didn't take it as far as I would have liked it, I have a feeling there's plenty more to come. Anyway, check out Senator Cruz's grilling of Mr. Jack.
Mr. Dorsey, does Twitter have the ability to influence elections?
No.
You don't believe Twitter has any ability to influence elections?
No, we are one part of a broad spectrum of communication channels that people have.
So you're testifying to this committee right now that Twitter, when it silences people, when it censors people, when it blocks political speech, that has no impact on elections?
People have choice of other communication channels with which.
Not if they don't hear information. If you don't think you have the power to influence elections, why do you block anything?
Well, we have policies that are focused on making sure that more voices on the platform are possible. We see a lot of abuse and harassment, which ends up silencing people and having them leave from the platform.
All right, Mr. Dorsey, I find your opening questions, your opening answers absurd on their face. But let's talk about the last 2 weeks in particular. As you know, I have long been concerned about Twitter's pattern of censoring and silencing individual Americans with whom Twitter disagrees. But 2 weeks ago, Twitter, and to a lesser extent Facebook, crossed a threshold that is fundamental in our country. 2 weeks ago, Twitter made the unilateral decision to censor the New York Post in a series of 2 blockbuster articles, both alleging evidence of corruption against Joe Biden, the first concerning Ukraine, the second concerning communist China. And Twitter made the decision, number one, to prevent users, any user, from sharing those stories. And number two, you went even further and blocked the New York Post from sharing on Twitter its own reporting. Why did Twitter make the decision to censor the New York Post?
We had a hack materials policy that we.
When was that policy adopted?
In 2018, I believe.
In 2018. Go ahead. What was the policy?
So the policy is around limiting the spread of materials that are hacked. We didn't want Twitter to be a distributor for hack materials. We found that the New York Post, because it showed the direct materials, screenshots of the direct materials, and it was unclear how those were attained, that it fell under this policy. Now,
so in your view, if it's unclear the source of a document, and in this instance, the New York Post documented what it said the source was, which it said it was a laptop owned by Hunter Biden that had been turned into a repair store. So they weren't hiding what they claimed to be the source. Is it your position that Twitter, when you can't tell the source, blocks press stories?
No, not at all. Our team made a fast decision. The enforcement action, however, of blocking URLs, both in tweets and in DM, in direct messages, we believe was incorrect.
So, Mr. Dorsey, your ability is you have the power to force a media outlet. Let's be clear. The New York Post isn't just some random guy tweeting. The New York Post has the 4th highest circulation of any newspaper in America. The New York Post is over 200 years old. The New York Post was founded by Alexander Hamilton. And your position is that you can sit in Silicon Valley and demand of the media that you can tell them what stories they can publish, and you can tell the American people what reporting they can hear. Is that right? So Twitter takes the view you can censor the New York Post, you can censor Politico, presumably you can censor the New York Times or any other media outlet. Mr. Dorsey, who the hell elected you and put you in charge of what the media are allowed to report and what the American people are allowed to hear? And why do you persist in behaving as a Democratic super PAC, silencing views to the contrary of your political beliefs?
Let's give.
Even after that was yesterday. Today's today. Even after that yesterday, today, Twitter suspended the account of the United States border chief for posting about the wall. Suspended, locked, out of the conversation. A United States border chief was suspended. The White House press secretary was suspended. You know who wasn't suspended from Twitter? The ex-prime minister of Malaysia. And you know what? In regard to what's been happening in France, he had some very wonderful, wise, and peaceful tweets. I'm going to read you one of them. Keep in mind, it's still up there. Twitter has no problem with it. Let me read. Muslims have a right to be angry and to kill millions of French people for the massacres of the past. Yeah, that's cool. But a U.S. border chief will get suspended, a 200-year-old newspaper will get suspended, and the White House press secretary will get suspended. But not this guy. And don't get me wrong. I want no censorship. I want the world to see what kind of ignorant piece of shit the ex-prime minister of Malaysia is. So no censorship. And now I want to give you an example about reading headlines or watching things without context. I, as I usually do, was scrolling through the Twitters and I saw a little video of an elephant being tortured. A baby elephant being tortured. I thought he was being buried alive. Until I clicked on the video, watched the whole thing, and saw the context. What actually happened is the elephant was being dusted by its caregivers. See, the elephant was an orphan, and the mom would usually dust the baby to protect it from bugs and the sun. Since the mom is not there, the caregivers had to do it. It was quite wholesome, quite nice. Check it out.
Yes. And her name means the place where the olive trees grow. Oh, okay. We did see a lot of olive trees. Yes, yeah.
Not many olives.
No.
It's not a tree.
Are they called the problematic other than their irritating? Yeah. You get certain.
So the lesson here is, don't go by the headline. Read the fucking article. Should Jack Dorsey be expelled from the planet? Is France surprising you by showing some balls? Comment down below. And in all seriousness, how cute was that fucking elephant? Comment down below. Like, subscribe. Ginger out.